Good morning, McGillicuddy residents. Dennis? One moment, please. Hi, I'm sorry. He's not available. He's actually on the golf course.
It's an interesting family history, family tree, if you will. My grandfather, Dennis's grandfather, on our father's side, was a major figure in Major League Baseball going back into the 1800s. Helped create the American League in 1900 and managed the A's for 50 years. Our other grandfather came from Texas and was involved in politics his whole life. He was a congressman from East Texas in the early 1900s, was appointed to the United States Senate in 1912, and then in 1916, after the Constitution was changed, he was elected to the United States Senate, where he served until 1941, when he died as the Dean of the United States Senate. So we have I think an interesting background, baseball and politics, not coming together that often.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about Dennis. Dennis and I went to law school together. That was back in the mid 60s. I think we graduated in 66. Dennis graduated, I think, in 65. He was a year ahead of me. So I knew Dennis in law school, but we weren't friends. We were kind of opponents. Dennis was married, and I was single. And there were about 4 or 5 guys like Dennis, real bright and married. And at Florida at that time, the law school was graded on a curve. So you know, if 100 was an A, then 80 was either a C or a D, you know, which was really tough. So the single guys were competing with the married guys who did nothing but stay home and study while I'm drinking beer and running around town. So I learned a valuable lesson that first quarter. I almost flunked out because of that. I had to hit the books. So I really didn't like Dennis a lot because of that. I mean, he set the bar so high. He was a great student.
Come out of law school with a very promising legal career, had clerked for a judge, and then had joined a very established law firm in Lakeland, and life was good. And what could be better? And he traded that all in to become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And to follow his passion, something that he really wanted to try that was new and different. So I think I had a sense of, wow, he's doing something new. Now, it had pretty significant consequences for our family because it involved a lot of travel and being away. And they could see a future in cable television. Yet the skeptics were saying, wait a minute, you're going to charge people to watch TV that they can see basically over the airwaves for free? What are you guys, nuts? Mm-hmm. And he and his partners just had a vision for what that could be.
And as it has unfolded through the years, it's been very fun to talk about what the possibilities are and where it's going. And
exactly.
Gosh, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, who could have ever imagined it would be this way? But they had this sense between two brilliant business minds and a brilliant engineer mm-hmm. who knew how to make the equipment work and even developed new technology, got one of the very first patents in two-way cable communications. Mm-hmm. And, we're talking about in the early 1970s. Right?
Dennis and Graci have spent basically their entire lives working together on various projects. And the political side of this all kind of happened, in some respects, kind of accidentally. I mean, I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives in 1982. Sarasota was in the northern part of the district at that time. Dennis and Graci being here, reached out to them, obviously, to see what kind of help that they would give, and they hopped right in. But a rather interesting and significant thing happened during the campaign, One day, Graci came home, looked outside and saw that the swimming pool looked like it was about ready to overflow, ran out to try to bring the hose out, didn't realize the sliding glass door was closed and ran smack into it. She broke her nose, and she had to quit playing tennis, and the only thing that she had left to do was to be involved in my campaign. It changed her life, it changed my life, and Dennis's at the same time.
So back in 1986, Graci McGillicuddy was reading a newspaper article about Shannon Nicole and how she was horrifically abused and later passed away. And it brought tears to her eyes as she read the story, and she just couldn't really fathom how something like that could possibly happen to a child by their parent.
Until I think when she entered the field of child protection, then once her passion was clear and she had her mission set, then it was only in retrospect that I could fully understand and appreciate how that momentous day of 1986 changed her life.
Yeah. But let's be clear, I mean, it started, she'd always been, I can remember walking on Siesta Key Beach and somebody had tied their child to a cinder block. Oh, she wasn't having that.
Yeah, and the cinder block was right at the edge of the water so the child could go into the water and out of the water. And Mom went and gave that parent an earful. What about if the tide comes in and out? Oh my gosh. I don't think the parent ever did that again.
Yeah.
Graci is a force with herself, and when she came to CPC, she came as a breath of fresh air, but she also came very forcefully with a purpose, driven.
Purpose, passion. I think Shannon Nicole was just the beginning, because when she saw that article and became involved and got introduced to CPC, she hasn't stopped since 1986. So it's been a long journey and continuing to fight and advocate for children. And what I love, we say Graci is that one name, but behind Graci is Dennis, because Dennis just wants to see her succeed and reach her dreams. And it's nice to see them working together to kind of accomplish that.
I remember when I first saw Dennis and Graci together, she received that award at the Tampa Bay Lightning. I didn't know them well, and I said, are they for real? Like, because Dennis literally was cheering behind her, like with his face, his arms, everything. And yeah, I've seen it ever since then, that he is in the wings, guiding, cheering. Sometimes he'll say Graciella, is that how he says it?
He does.
Then that gets her attention. But she said herself that they are opposites, and they finally learned in their many years of marriage to celebrate the differences instead of trying to change each other.
So she is just at the forefront of so many of these conversations and examples, and quite simply, she makes it happen. So she has a dream and an idea, she brings it together, and it happens. And then we're looking at an example to be a footprint for not just this area, but something that can be replicated nationally.
As some of you may know, I've spent almost 2 decades in Tallahassee, both in the House and in the Senate, and Graci McGillicuddy, for sure, was an absolute force in both chambers. I've watched as she worked extremely hard year after year to advocate for children's welfare, to make sure that we were addressing from a public policy standpoint issues like human trafficking. She also was an advocate for funding for these issues, and basically she influenced the outcome of the process more than you can imagine. And by her efforts, she helped the legislature make Florida a safer place for women, for children, and talk about what issues are important, what was pending or what needed to be pending. And she had this relationship not just with me, although I considered it very special, but with other members as well, senators and House members alike. She also was very well respected by the entire Florida cabinet and different governors through the years. One of the things I really enjoyed as president of the Senate was when I was at the rostrum, and you have the floor, but you also have the gallery around the chamber. And on many occasions, I'd come in, look at the room, and glance up into the gallery, and I'd see the smiling faces of Dennis and Graci McGillicuddy, and I'd say, you know what, it's gonna be a good day, and there's something important happening today because the McGillicuddys are here.
It was Walt Disney who said, all of our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And Graci is gifted with an incredible amount of courage. She does not back down. If an obstacle pops up, she is undaunted. She will jump over it, or she will figure out a way for us to walk around it. So she's a tour guide, she's a board member, she's a visionary, she's a rainmaker. She is an inspiring role model. She's a cheerleader for fundraising. As one donor said to her, this was so telling, Graci, you're the most expensive friend that I have. And it's true. When she asks you for something, it's not for her. It's not for her. It's coming from her heart, asking a donor to help a child.
But she tells the story how she went to a board meeting once, and they were talking about some of the problems with the system, and she got really mad. And she said she stood up and she looked at everyone in the boardroom and said, until foster care is safe enough for you to send your own grandchildren to the best home in foster care, then we're failing the system and we're not doing it right. And she left the room and she resigned from the board. And now you look back at that interaction and where that has come with All Star Children's Foundation, and I would challenge anybody who's in foster care to then come to this campus and come to one of our homes and realize that we created a place that is the best model of foster care for children and families.
When Graci and Dennis support something, the community knows it's been vetted, and they know it's valid, they know it's a good cause. And you know, something I will never forget, I'm a cancer survivor myself, and as Graci battled cancer the second time, she called to tell us that she got this new diagnosis, and she said, you know, I'm not ready to go, but if the good Lord wants me to be up in heaven to take care of Shannon, to play with Shannon and cuddle her, Shannon Nicole, I will. And I thought, even in that time of when you hear that word cancer, your time stops and you think about your mortality and you think of your purpose here. She still was thinking of Shannon Nicole.
Yes.
That little baby, that little girl has made such a difference, and it was horrible what happened to her, but my goodness, did Graci make beauty from ashes in that situation.
I've been teaching tennis for 58 years, and I can honestly say she was without a doubt the best student I've ever had. Her dedication, her work ethic is second to none. When she walks on this court, she has given me 100% every time she's been here. It's mind-boggling. If you had told me 20 years ago that you could be better at 70 than you are at 60, or you could be better at 80 than you are at 70, you know, I would say you're dreaming. But it's true. I mean, this girl is walking proof. She was better at 70 than she was at 60. She's better at 80 than she was at 70.
My most memorable experience with them cheerleading me was when I called them to let them know that I had just won the Independent Hotelier of the World Award. They immediately chartered a plane for family and friends and them to join me for the ceremony in New York. When the ceremony was over, Graci grabbed a huge poster that was a copy of the picture of me on the cover of the magazine where I was featured, and marched into the middle of Fifth Avenue on our way to dinner at Rockefeller Center, stopped traffic, jumped up and down, pointed at the poster, pointing at me, and said, "That's my friend," as if it was the most important thing in the world to her that day. We got to Rock Center, and the restaurant was adjacent to the skating rink. She continued her antics when we got to the restaurant. And that's our Graci. Every moment is filled with enthusiasm and passion.
Hello, friends. Today's performance of The Power of Peanut Butter and Other Winning Plays will begin in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, please.
So right around 1981, we formed a group called the Friends of Florida Studio Theater to be a fundraising organization for us. And one of the people in that group was a young lady by the name of Graci McGillicuddy, who was very vivacious and a great fundraiser in connecting us to people all over Sarasota. And that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship with Graci, and then a year or two later, Dennis McGillicuddy. And Dennis eventually joined the corporate board of Florida Studio Theater, and we became fast friends, and he was actually best man at my wedding to Rebecca Hopkins. So Dennis and I have become fast, close friends now for going on half a century. When Dennis came on the board, I remember having a conversation with my associate producer at the time, John Jacobson, and we looked at each other and said, Dennis is different than other corporate guys and other business guys, isn't he? Yeah. So Dennis is a new age businessman. So Dennis was very entrepreneurial and got the idea that we wanted to do things differently. And because he was open to those different choices that we wanted to make, the theater was able to really flourish. And Dennis was a massive supporter back in those days. And by that supporting, I mean at the board level, a massive supporter. Because he embraced the new ideas that we would bring and then amplified them and helped connect our ideas to the community as well. Dennis fully understood our ambition to build a theater that was based in the art of the theater, with the understanding that the art of the theater only exists with a living, breathing audience. It doesn't exist unto itself. It's not art for art's sake. That never works in the American theater or in any theater historically. Art of the theater has to exist in concert with the audience.
The plays are here!
The plays are here!
They understood the need for supporting children and children's theater, which returns very little. I mean, our average price today, I think, is about $5 a ticket for our children's theater program, and that's for the kids who pay. Probably 80% of the kids are seeing shows for free, and we're serving about between 30 and 40,000 children a year. Graci and Dennis have supported this 100%, recognizing that, Florida Studio Theater is a great place to raise children. It's also an even greater place to raise adults. But that selflessness and generosity, I think, is at the heart and soul of what Dennis and Graci have done for Florida Studio Theater, for the Sarasota community at large, for the state of Florida. They're extraordinary philanthropists and extraordinary human beings.
It was amazing. It was hugely successful, and Rafi Edgar took the exhibit and left, as he did to every other city in Europe and the United States. And Dennis said, you know, it was so successful, it's so important, and look how we have changed so many children. Let's keep it up. Can we do it? So with some advice, we changed the name to Embracing Our Differences, and we moved forward. When we started the exhibit 20-some years ago, the first year we had 124 entries in pictures and quotes in the park. To show you, now 22 years later, we had over 16,000 this year. And what I appreciate about the McGillicuddys is they were encouraging us to go larger, to go forward, and not just do what Mr. Edgar had done. So we got on the internet, we contacted all kinds of art communities around the world, and that's how we have grown so much. we have also encouraged embracing our differences in the United States. And, to me, very important, we also have embracing our differences in Israel, which is called Different Together. And it's a fabulous, well-attended, 250,000 people attended it last year, and it talks about peace, and it talks about trying to be open to other people. So we really have made a difference. And Dennis and Graci were the ones that really encouraged us to take this wonderful message around the world.
Watching Dennis and Graci interact with each other in life and in the community is like watching an incredible tennis match. They volley back and forth with each other with strength, enthusiasm. They're right on target, and they're out to win. So any organization in this community would give anything to have the two of them as cheerleaders and the power couple behind the cause. Fortunately, Dennis and Graci have chosen causes that make an incredible difference in this amazing community that we call our own.
Good afternoon, McGillicuddy residents.